You know how privileged people are born on third base thinking they've hit a triple? Well, I was so poor that I was born in the parking lot and I had to sneak my way into the stadium.
Says what he wants, but he's so contradicted. He's a man of conviction, but he's never been convicted.
Hello, everyone. I am Matthew Gosson. Welcome to Man of Conviction. Today on the show, I am so lucky to have Richard Hurd. Some of you may remember him as John, the Supreme Commander in V, that 10-part miniseries that blew everybody away. Richard has been acting for over 70 years. He's worked with Clint Eastwood on 2 films, Alan J. Pakula in All the President's Men. He's worked with Carl Reiner. He was a regular on Seinfeld as George Costanza's boss at the Yankees. He was on T.J. Hooker, Quantum Leap. He recently worked with Jordan Peele on Get Out. He's a painter and a sculptor and a real sweet guy. And for the sci-fi community out there, he can sing in Klingon. So how's that for sci-fi street cred? If you go to manofconvictionpodcast.com, you can check out his reel and some other links that I put up there. This interview is a bit on the long side, but it's really worth it. So let's get right to it. All right, everybody. I am here with Richard Hurd, a name that may or may not sound familiar, but that face, you know that face. You've seen that face your whole life because he's been in stuff since the 60s. You were doing stuff, right?
I became a member of Actors Equity, which is the stage union, the
Right.
theater, in 1953. And later I went into the service, and they used me to do what they call informative films or training films. And that was very fortunate because that's where I got all my camera training.
Right.
And so when I got out of the service and came back, I went to New York, and I studied with Sandy Meisner and Bobby Lewis, people like that. But I was fortunate that I also had a security clearance at that time. And they used me, the old Paramount studio out in Queens.
Yeah.
They also was the Army Signal Corps.
Okay.
So it was a lifesaver because we would go out there and audition, and you'd make, it just blew your mind because of the amount of money. Off-Broadway, you were making $45 a week off-Broadway. You did one day in an Army training film after you came out of the service.
Right.
$60 a day. Can you imagine that? $60
Wow.
a day. My apartment was $45 a month.
You were living large.
I could make a call for a nickel, and I could have a cup of coffee for a nickel.
Man, those were the days.
They were good days. They were the best days because there was so much. It's so expensive today to do anything, to make a film, to do a play. At that time, everything was affordable. Broadway, off-Broadway. I caught the tail end of radio when I was in New York as well. And I did quite a bit out here, too, with Peggy Webber. We did a lot of stuff by, what's his name, Norman Corman, one of the great radio people, and a lot of actors. I did some of the recaps on the Cecil B. DeMille, the Lux Radio Theater.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, yeah, so the radio, and then radio was so much fun. And at what time... And then zoop, along came television, which was live.
Sure.
And at the beginning, television was exciting. It was live, great directors, Broadway writers. Then they found out you could make money with a lot of toothpaste or Preparation H or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And then the scripts, you had Patty Chayefsky writing and all of these great writers writing. And it was live. There was no film. There was no tape.
No editors.
My first 1 or 2, I was scared to death. It's just but after a while you got used to it because if you have a theater background, it's okay. So I must say, even at the beginning, the first 3 years in New York were kind of tough. But if the kids today can't get in; they can't even get an audition. We could walk through the door and get kicked out, but at least you could get an audition, maybe.
Right.
That's the end of my story to you. You asked me one short thing, and I talked for 10 minutes.
No, that's what you're here for. That is what you're here for. Let's go back to radio briefly. My great-grand-aunt, my grandmother's aunt, was for a few years a radio star in New York City. Her name was Welcome the Singing Bee. She was Welcome Lewis was her name, and she had a little run there for a minute, made some money, and came back to California. And
That's wonderful. Do you have any of that material?
I do, yeah.
That must have been. Was that in the 50s?
I believe that was in the 30s. The 30s. I believe it was in the 30s.
Do you know a lot of those shows transferred, even with those scripts, to television when it was live?
Yeah.
The soap operas, when they were only 15, 20 minutes, then they wrote them up to half-hour television shows.
And put the beautiful people in there saying the lines and made it work.
Yeah, that's the way it was done. Yeah.
So basically, you've been doing this for over 65 years.
Yeah, let me see, 75, 85, oh, no, longer than that, 60, because, 53, yeah, whatever it is. See, you got to remember that before that, I played drums with a band, I sang with a band, I did community theater. I apprenticed at the Boston, I had to apprentice for 2 years.
Wow.
I didn't get my card till 53, but at 51, I did an audition at the Boston Summer Theater, and I got in as an apprentice.
Wow.
And you work 2 years to get your what they call your junior membership, because in the second year or the second summer, at the end they give you a couple of plays with a few lines, and you become a junior member. Then you have to get more credits, and then become a senior member. But the shows when I worked, there were stars that came through: Veronica Lake, Claude Rains, all sorts of stars, Alexis Smith, and it was the producer's job there. Maybe 2 or 3 stars came. He had to provide the rest of the company.
Right.
So he also hired a juvenile and blah, 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 blah. So I would be washing the floor, painting the sets. I was in crowd scenes. I was part of the chorus in musicals. I built the sets, not just myself. There were 5 or 6 of us. But I learned the theater starting with cleaning up the toilets and bringing the coffee.
That's the way. Wow.
Well, with the actors, too. And when I had time, I wasn't doing something backstage, I would always watch them. Always watch them. And we had training, during the afternoons, training, and we had movement, and we had, how to, diaphragm, from the diaphragm.
Sure.
Because you got to remember, when we were working then, there was no help on the stage. There were no microphones.
You needed to project.
You had to project.
Hit that back seat.
Yeah, but that's what people, if you're going to become a plumber, you have to apprentice.
Sure.
Any craft or skill that you're going to do, you have to apprentice. Most of the kids today don't want to do that, Some of them get lucky and they get a show. But there are so many people that are in the business of literally stealing their money.
Yeah.
They charge these huge fees, and Anyway, what I say to all the kids that are going to go to a teacher or a coach, I say, Google the name, see what kind of theater background they have, what sort of training they have. Or have they worked in New York or Chicago? And, get an opinion about it.
Sure.
Because there are a lot of people that are teaching. Well, look at Compass and Second City, all the people that went through there.
Sure.
Look at all the great training they got.
Yep.
Going through a place like that. My God.
The list it's just so long. Okay. Let's start with All the President's Men.
Oh, yeah, that was, I couldn't get in for an audition. It was absolutely, we tried, my agent, I couldn't get in.
How did that happen?
The freak. I had worked a little bit for Jose Quintero, and his casting person was, thank you, Isabel Burton, I think. Isabel Burton. I went in town every week, 4 days a week, looking for work. That's the actor's job, not acting. The actor's job is to look for a job, primary, not sit on his butt at home, get out. And the agent called, and he just said, my God, he said, Isabel Halliburton has suggested, and she wants you to call her. She has something she wants you to talk about. So I said hi, I hadn't seen. She says, how, Rich? And so she says, how would you like to be in All the President's Men? I said, what? Oh. She said, what are you doing for the next month? I said, well, I don't have anything coming up. She said, well, tomorrow afternoon I'll know. And they'll want you on a plane down to Washington Friday night or Saturday morning, and you would start on Monday, and it's a month's work. I said, okay. So bang, bang, bang. Late that night, she called me, She said, you had the job of James McCord, one of the burglars. Went through the whole thing and met the people and read as much as I could. They gave me about McCord, and there were 4 of us, the 4 burglars. We actually used Watergate.
The actual building.
The actual building, but the inside was a different business. And Robert Redford, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And I had dream director Alan Pakula and Bruce Willis, one of the greatest cinematographers you could ever work with. And I said, oh my God, how lucky can you get? And there were a lot of us that only worked 1 scene, 2 scenes, 3 scenes, but mine happened. There was a guy, when they finally caught us at the Watergate breaking in, we heard them coming. Do you know much about what happened there? That we parked, and I went down, and I put the tape, the gaffer's tape.
Right, on the door.
Went upstairs.
Right.
The actual guard, he came, he saw the tape. He took the tape off and didn't call anyone. They used him in the film, as a matter of fact. So I went down to check it again. I said, Jesus, it's gone. So I put it back on again. Finally, he got an idea there's something going on somewhere. So they called the police department and blah, blah, blah. And we're all hiding, now we're hiding in this room. And there's this guy, 2 or 3 cops, and this one guy jumps up on top of a filing cabinet. He says, freeze, goddammit, freeze. That was F. Murray Abraham.
Ah.
That was his line.
Oh, that's great.
Bobby Walden was in it. Oh, everybody. We are all growing up in these films.
Sure.
And you've got to realize, my agent, just by saying he just did James McCord in All the President's Men, nobody had seen it.
Right.
I got jobs.
Sure.
I was brought out to California to do this, brought out to California to do that, and Rockford Files, all those things. And then I go home. I stayed at the Magic Hotel.
Oh, uh-huh.
And the agent didn't have any job. I went back to New York. I wasn't going to hang around there. And then finally they called me and they said they want to see you about this show, T.J. Hooker.
Right.
T.J. Hooker. Well, I went in and I auditioned, with Bill Shatner. And that year, I was invited to come to the Berkshire Theater Festival in Massachusetts with a wonderful cast, J.T. Walsh, all kinds of wonderful people, to do the, it's one that's, it's not done too often, with Tony Musante. Tony Musante was in it. Yeah, Clifford Odets play, It'll Come to Me. And they came up from New York and this and that. And we got such great reviews and blah and blah. And at that time, I was strongly urged, and there were some things to bring me back into New York to work in New York, or either off or on.
Right.
And I got a call from my agent because my audition just consisted of reaming him out. I was his commanding officer, Shatner, blah, blah, blah. And he was going to take 6 kids. And everybody, he was going to train them outside. They said they'd cut all that. They're going to take 1 guy, and they want you to be his commanding officer. It's an offer to do. We're not going to just do the pilot. We're going to do 6 shows. 6. And I said, well, when do I start? I said, well, that'll coordinate because I'll be finishing The Big Knife. And because we rehearsed 2 weeks, we did it 2 weeks. But I had a couple of auditions in New York, and the agent said, look. This is 6 performances guaranteed out front, and the money is very, very good. I said, money? Oh, Jesus. I said, well, of course. I'll take it. I'll go. And I did. And so I got out there with every intention. I still was staying at the Magic Hotel.
Uh-huh.
And then another offer, and I said, well, because they offered me another season. I said, well, I'll be moving out here now. So I moved out here. And I actually got 2.5 seasons out of it, close to 3, 2.5. And I went from that into the 10-hour miniseries, V.
John the Supreme Commander.
John the Supreme Commander, a wonderful writer and director, Ken Johnson.
Uh-huh.
Fabulous guy. It was so good to work. And the people, Mark Singer and Jane Badler. There are a lot of good people out there. God bless you all.
I have a good friend who's a kind of a sci-fi expert. He asked me to ask you your impressions of Fay Grant and Michael Ironsides.
Well, Fay Grant is the one that tore my face off.
Right.
The great ripoff.
Right.
So I had a small amount of time to work with her, but she seemed like a very pleasant. She, Fay, Jane, Mark, there's another little hitch that goes with Michael, because I also did Sequest.
Oh,
and
right.
Roy Scheider wanted off, and Michael did that when they moved to Florida. My time around Faye was, was fine.
Nice.
And I saw very little of Michael. I didn't work. I worked with my people, and I very rarely, being the Supreme Commander,
Sure.
even let the lower class enter into my plane or my ship.
Sure.
The things you save, the things you keep.
Sure.
I have 2 sci-fi cabinets at home, and every single day I go into the garage, I go into my studio because I paint. I take 1 or 2 things out. I find a place. I don't know how to work online like that, but I find a place either to contribute it, give it. And I have if your friend wants to talk to me, I have a lot of stuff that I'm not giving away, but I'm going to sell it.
Kirk?
A lot of V stuff. I'm selling a lot of my V. I have an original script. I have T.J. Hooker. I have Sequest. I have this other guy I love working with, Quantum Leap.
Oh, right.
So everything's going out of the closet. I'm only going to keep a few things. I'm sending a bunch of stuff to my son. I gave a bunch of stuff to Discovery, the cancer people.
Sure.
Because they love those scripts and so forth and so on.
They can raise money, yeah.
Yeah, to raise money.
Yeah.
But now I decided, and I got my son. I gave him a lot of my stuff. So I have stuff for sale, and I can, what should I do there? Leave my email or what?
I can get in contact with, if people want to contact
With him.
me.
I'll give you that information. Like if you got a lovely studio here.
Thank you.
If you had to move everything outside,
Yeah.
it's a big job.
Yeah, it is.
And it's folks, I want to let you know that I'm just a very grateful man. And it was tough in the business at the beginning, like it is with anybody starting out with anything. The only thing is you gotta let them kick you in the ass, but hang in, and get your training. And the first 3 years, like with any business, is tough. And study. You have to study. If you don't go to Northwestern or they don't accept you at Juilliard, find a private teacher or go to a class. And in about 3 or 4 years, if you got anything at all, you got to get a survival job, of course. But anything at all, you'll start making a modest living. You can do it, but you have to be disciplined. And like Irving, the great English director, when a young man came to him, he says, "Are you ready to starve?" I had my night job when I was going to school. I was fortunate enough to get into the Teamsters Union.
Uh-huh.
And I only worked on the weekends. We moved offices around. But I made enough on the weekends to support myself.
Smart.
Then after a while, I sent a letter to James Hoffa. Blah, 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 blah. I wanted to take what you call an honorable relief.
Uh-huh.
And by God, I got a letter back.
Nice.
Wasn't signed.
Huh.
I didn't say a word. 2 weeks later, I got another letter. He says, "Please forgive me. I forgot to sign your letter."
Wow.
And somebody snitched that letter on me.
Oh, man.
That's a collector's piece.
Sure is.
Anyway,
Wow.
I'm still standing, and I'm a big blab mouth. I'm going to let this wonderful gentleman over here who so kindly invited me to join him in his lovely workplace.
Well, you worked with some cool people, and I'm sure you have so many stories. So you worked with Clint Eastwood. You had good things to say about him.
Oh, God, he was... I got a job overseas. My wife and I were in, where the hell were we? Brighton, I think. Brighton, up north. And the agent, I had given her my itinerary. She called, and they said, "They want you for a Garden of Good and Evil." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, they want you. It's going to be a split kind of thing, Dick. They want you for a week. They're going to go back to Savannah, and some of the stuff in Hollywood, they want you for another 2 weeks." And I said, "Fine." Man, and to work with Kim Hunter, who was in the original Streetcar Named Desire on Broadway. She was in the original company.
Wow.
And I did a lot of my stuff with her. They cut out, naturally, 2 or 3 scenes. I ended up with about 3. And Kevin Spacey, he was the lead.
Right.
Kevin Spacey. We had wonderful act on that, wonderful. And Clint Eastwood is a very disciplined man. All he expects is perfection. And I'll tell you a wonderful thing about the man. His cameraman at that time had been with him nearly 30 years.
Wow.
His makeup person that I knew from T.J. Hooker, the hairstylist, she'd been with him for 12 years. Everyone around him has been with him. He's very loyal.
Yeah.
5, 10, 15, 20 years. When you're here in L.A., no matter where you are, his food is great.
The best food.
The great food. And if you're working here in L.A. or wherever, he likes to get home early Friday. So, up Carmel or wherever he lives now. And he gets everything done in the day in which it should be done. And he also brings every film in under budget and under time.
Wow.
If it's 60 days, he might bring it in 56, 57 days. And he never calls action. He said, Matthew, he said, you got anything you want to tell me? Anything, any idea or anything? He says, no. He says, are you ready? He says, yeah. He said, well, the camera's running all that time.
Sure.
He says, you just start whenever you want.
That's so great.
And then he says, if you think of anything at the end in this scene, you're talking to somebody, he says, keep going.
That's
and
great.
He usually gets it in one take. Sometimes it's two.
Man.
But it's you see, when you're in the business, when you walk onto a soundstage, you can feel right away if it's a goodie or if it's uptight.
Right.
And if it's uptight, the directors, you can't just work. Because you can't, somebody says to you, do what you want as long as you're doing the right thing. And he leaves you alone.
Yeah.
And when I got the other thing, came out of the blue. I got a call. They said, they want you for the Mule. There's a part in the Mule for his best friend. They were in the service together and blah, blah. I said, what? They said, oh, yeah. I said, it's 5 weeks' work. We want you to come out to Atlanta and someplace else. Then you go back 10 days and you come back out again. And I did it, loved it. They cut to my scenes. I had a lovely death scene at the end. I had another one. But you know what they did? They sent me both scenes.
Wow, that's great.
They sent me both scenes that they cut. And I was just the happiest. I said, look, for me now, it's fun. I'm an older man. They look after me. They take care of me. So now it's just a matter of getting out of the house.
Totally.
But I have to tell anybody, if I were to give you one piece of advice about acting, the best thing is to be perfect. But when you go in for an audition, you're there to do an audition. Don't get yummy. Don't get friendly, because right away you have broken the sense of what your character is going to be. You don't have to go in there as your character. You go in polite and you get right to the work. You get to the work and, be friendly and walk out. Don't stop and talk, because you have left something in the air.
That's good advice, man.
The career thing, you have left that in the air. And if you break it back to yourself, by the time you're through the door, it's gone.
Right.
You killed it.
Right.
I usually say, thank you. I'm out. And another thing, when you go to an audition, you don't go to an audition to sit with your buddies and talk.
No.
You find a place around the corner or something, and you do your work.
Sure.
Because Vi Spolin, she asked me one time, because I studied with her son and all. She said, Richard, what's the most important thing? She says, well, Vi, I've gone to class and this and that. I said, really, the actor alone, when you're alone, and the preparation, because that's the key word. And she took my advice and she wrote a book, because you've got to pay attention to what you're doing when you go to an audition. You can't get distracted. You can't bullshit or read the paper. You're there to get the job. And to work with him again was such a treat. I never knew. One of the film about one-day lilies. They only bloom for one day. But it didn't turn out to be that. He haphazardly became a mule for the cartel.
Right.
But he's wonderful. He's just he's a good sport. I like him. And it's amazing. He's 88 years old. He does at least 2 films a year. And he said to a few of us, he said, this is the last one I'll direct. It's too much, He stars in it. He's one of the producers and directs it. It's a lot of work.
At 88.
88 years old. And he does. How many of these things has he done?
It's amazing.
Yeah, and he's an amazing guy. I've been fortunate. I have worked with some people, though. You just have to be, the only thing you have to do really as an actor, another good thing, is remember that you're not just acting with your head. That's the habit you can get into in film, because they do these close-ups. But remember, your head is attached to your body. So your body has to have an attitude of who you are as well as your head. So your body, and you have to, most importantly, listen. You have to listen. If I were to tell anyone anything, I'd say, listen. And you'll do all right. Jimmy Cagney used to say, learn your words and don't bump into the furniture.
Yeah, keep it simple.
That's the word. No act. You know what I say? I don't want to. Don't act. Learn your job. Know who you are, where you fit. Most directors, they hired you. That's the big secret in film or even TV. Is they hire the big thing. You'll say some directors right away. They're good casters. They know who. That's what happened when I did Fist with Stallone and Norman Jewison. What a director, Jesus! And he says if you get the casting right, 90% of he said that's the thing. He said that makes the director's job. I'm not here to direct you. You're supposed to have done all that. You're supposed to come prepared to. This is a partnership. You, me, and 3 other people in the scene. It's a partnership. And we have to know what the hell we're doing. And I said to him one time, I said, what would you say the 2 most important things about being a director are? Because they're there first thing in the morning, last thing is night. He said, well, patience and a warm pair of shoes. But he is responsible for everything. That's a tough job. What goes on the camera, what you see, he is responsible.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
It is. Another reason that Clint's, you'll like this.
Please.
Films go the way they do. He oftentimes has the editor right there on the film with him.
Oh, I think that's a great idea.
The editor is right there. So he's got a head start already.
That's smart. And I've heard that people do that. And that way you can actually see, because you can get a video feed right out into the computer as right. It's each take. He has the editor now has it, and as they're shooting, he can kind of cut the scene together and show the director, and they can realize, ooh, we need that, or you know what, we don't need to do the 2-shot. We're fine with the close-ups. Let's move on, or whatever. And you can see it, an hour later or less.
I know.
It's crazy, right?
Isn't that wonderful? But yeah, you don't have to wait.
Nope.
The guy that was like that, I worked with Carl Reiner and John Candy. And God bless Rip. I worked with the Ripper a few times.
Was this Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
No, this was Summer Rental. I had a big red, I played a Scot.
Okay.
Big mustache, this and that. And I had a lot of fun doing that.
Did you do like a Scottish accent?
I have oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
You get down right here and talk like that.
I did no, you know what I did? I'll tell you about my preparation. I got original tapes of Scots, and then I found out. I went out in Santa Monica. There's a Scotch store, like there's an Irish store.
Sure.
And I said, look, this is what I'm doing. And is there a Scot group of people live in any particular way? They said, well, yeah, we know several of them. I told them, they said, well, here's some phone numbers. Oh, so I called them, and they invited me over, and they read the script for me, my scenes. They read them. And then I came back, and I worked with them. So I had it.
Yeah,
ready.
You did. That's the way to do it. Wow.
I said to Carl and his buddy, George Shapiro, because they called for a giant of a man. I said, he said, you filled the room, Richard. You filled the room. And we were doing one scene, and I was something, I wanted to do, and I said, Jesus, I didn't get it. And he said, you did get it. I said, I didn't feel like I got it. He says, Richard, come here. And he had the television right there. Mm-hmm. He said, now watch. I said, you're right. And he said, of course I'm right. We called it Camp Reiner. What a great guy.
Yeah.
And the wonderful man who was in that. Oh, I became such friends. Richard Crenna.
Oh, sure.
What a wonderful guy. And John Candy was a sweetheart, But the old Ripper, I had worked with him in a play or two. He's a bright, very, very man. A friend of mine, another dear man who passed away that I like so much, when I did the China Syndrome, Jack Lemmon.
Sure.
He put me up for membership in the Academy, and Rod Steiger seconded me.
Wow, that's
but
great.
Scott Brady, we became such friends from that film. And he would say things like, I have wishes for you, Richard. He said, I have a wish. Make sure your agent gets you up for Chuck Noll in Fighting Back, the Rocky Bleier story. Chuck was the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Uh-huh. I
walked in, I did my blah, blah, and I spent 2 2 weeks in La La Land here, and 2 weeks in and around all the places in Pittsburgh.
Uh-huh.
But it was an eye-opener, and he was one of my heroes. The other one from Boston was Bob Cousy. And years later, in a charity golf match, I had the opportunity to be on the same team with Bob Cousy and Chuck Knoll.
Wow.
Bob Cousy, God.
Is it true?
Am I talking too much?
No, I like to let people talk.
Because I'm a big blabber.
No, it's good stuff, Richard, for sure. You had to sing in Klingon at some point.
Oh, God.
Right? So
that was tough.
Like, I mean, just the preparation for having to sing.
Well, what they
Klingon.
did, I had done some singing in the past, but they just, it was a two-parter, Birthright 1 and 2. And the Klingon, the fighting song. And the first time you hear it, it's a young woman singing it to her child.
Okay.
Sweetly, sweetly. And then the next time, this is where it's the older Klingon sitting around a fire. And the third time was when the next generation discovers that they should have fought to the death.
Right.
Because you're not supposed to come home. But they were gassed or something, and they became prisoners, more or less, with the Romulans.
Right.
At that time. So what they sent me, the music, and I always used to go back once or twice a month, because I did 2 hours at the Gardenia singing. Every once in a while I'd sing someplace.
Oh, man.
And I worked with my my coach.
Sure.
And he got me onto that, and I learned those words. It was the hardest thing, to do it. Yeah, and that happened to me too. I did an animated film for Disney. Oh, Joseph and something. I sang in that. But a thing that happened, I'll just jump.
Please.
Because animation at one time was just with actors that did animation. And I did films and video games, whatever. But in film, it is really, the feature animated films. They never put the cast up because we were just people who did it and did it well. Now it's all stars.
Right.
And they're smart, Disney. They put the names that's going to attract them into the theater.
Yep.
So a lot of us, you just don't get those jobs anymore. You'll get a video game or something of that sort. But I used to love, because it was like radio, for God's sake.
Sure.
Like radio.
You've played a few villains or cops
you could do
stuff.
all that stuff. Yeah, you could do. You can still, like Peggy Weber with the California Art Radio Theater. She has, I don't know, it's called C-A-R-T. If you look that up, she must have, I've done about 25 or 30 for her over the years. She must have available close to 100 CDs of great shows that go way back, and recent shows with all kinds of great actors. And if anybody's really into radio, they should go look at that list, and you can write in, I guess, and buy one. I did a one-man Cecil B. DeMille show years ago.
Oh, cool.
And the Lux Radio Theater was a big thing as part of it. And so they're out there. All you have to do is look it up. CART, California Artists Radio Theater. I get nothing out of it, but I adore Peggy. And it's good. She uses wonderful people.
We'll send people your way, Peggy. It's just great just to hear a good radio drama or just even a radio documentary. And now podcasts are...
Well, what they do now is I used to be invited each year back east. They had a big festival, maybe 300 people, and spurred back out here. And I just did Seattle last year. And what you do is they get the great scripts, and they bring in the actors, and we rehearse. And the first day you do blah, 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 a lot of them. The second day it's a big dinner. And they get the actors and rehearse them. And sometimes they get some of the relatives from the people that were actually in some of those shows. And you can hear, what did I do? I played The Shadow. I did Gunsmoke. I did that. They also do the classics. And one here has a very odd name, but they're very good. It's called Spurred Back. The one in Seattle I don't remember, and the one in New York after all those years, it was called Old Time Radio. The fellow's name was Jay Hickerson, and if you really want some old tapes, Jay's retired, but I tell you, because you do the script, the guy next to you is a Foley artist. He does right there. There are 300 people in the audience. He does all the sound effects.
That's amazing.
Then there are 2 or 3 musicians. Everything's live.
Yeah, those sound effects guys
Oh, they're incredible.
they're so creative.
Yeah, they are. It's a very, the people that learned from that before they had big, like when they were doing comedies, as you know, Lucille Ball, when she was the first one, she and her husband. And so when they transferred finally into television, this is what happened. They loved their show, the network. And they said, but your show is going, it's like $2,000 every week, it's going over budget. And they went to the network people and they said, look, this is what we'll do. And I hope you want to do it with us. We'll pick up the $2,000. We'll pay it. But we want the rights to all of the shows. We want the rights. And he said, you want the rights to the television? You got a deal. They signed the deal. And what happened? They became billionaires.
Yeah.
I mean, because I did the show. I played one of the leading business guys, and they said, what are they going to do? What do they think they're going to do? Of course you're going to have them. Damn fools. They're not going to. What a bargain that was for us.
Wow. We're going to take a brief intermission, clear our palates, and this is where I ask you to go and support this podcast on Patreon. Subscribe for $1 a month. That's 25 cents per episode. It would really help. I have cool stickers and stuff like that. If you can't do that, then please go to Apple Podcasts, leave a kind review, perhaps a favorable rating. It really, truly helps. So let's get back to Richard right now. I have something here that might be interesting to you. I want to show you.
Show me.
I just handed an inner office memo from, 1932?
Daryl Zanuck. Where did you get this?
My great-grandfather was a director of photography. It's an inner office communication from Warner Brothers, and it says it's to Mike Curtiz from Daryl Zanuck. And it's on December 17th, 1932, and the subject is Keyhole, the movie Keyhole. And my great-grandfather was the cinematographer on this. And it says, rushes are excellent, the sets are exquisite, and your composition and action and everything seemed fine. The photography is absolutely outstanding, Daryl Zanuck. And so I'm sure Mike Curtiz was standing around my great-grandfather and folded it up and said, here, look, he likes your photography. Here, that's for you. And he kept it and gave it to his wife, and she kept it. And
I have to tell you, when you get on about a recent movie, I felt it was so wonderful working with Jordan Peele in Get Out.
Oh, sure.
And I'm way at the end of the picture, and I have a 3-page, more or less, soliloquy walking around. And that movie, Blumhouse, that movie, I think it was $4.5 million, $5 million. And that movie, to date, has made over $300 million.
That's quite a profit.
And Jordan Peele was such a wonderful man to work with. And he had no big movie stars, but good actors that had sort of a name. And he kept it around the house and this and that. It was wonderful, just wonderful. And then I had the good fortune to had a wonderful time. Right, it just popped. I did Shameless, enjoyed being with those folks. And then I got a call out of the blue from a guy saying, he said, we're doing this baseball picture about the first deaf baseball player.
Uh-huh.
And the silent partner, that'll be coming out.
Excellent.
And then I got a call. I had a wonderful time. I didn't even realize I was called by Hawaii Five-0. And I did not realize until I got there, they gave me a hat that said they have done 200 shows.
Wow.
And this is the new Hawaii Five-0.
Sure.
And now they're in their 10th year.
Wow.
And and several other things that go along. But it's a 50-50 deal. Sometimes you get an offer, and sometimes they want you to come in. And if I read the script of the part, right now at this age, I don't care if it's 1 or 2 scenes, but the scene is very important. If it's not worth it, I'd say no. I'd say, look, I'm happy to come in. You want me to read? I'll read. I don't get that's the thing you have to learn as an actor. You have to, You know, you have to know these things, and you have to know how to work with the pressure, because the only person that's putting you under pressure on the stage or in film is yourself. It's not an easy craft to learn, auditioning, because auditioning, I wrote a book, a little book called The Anatomy of Auditions, The Anatomy of... Another one I wrote, 50 questions, 50 answers. The things you have to know that you have to know. I have master classes, they call me, like BYU. Last one I was down Auburn, and I do master classes all with the kids.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking, you know, it would be such a thin book, but I said, gee, you know, I could do 50 questions, 50 answers, and on every other page I could put a picture of me and somebody I worked with. I'd probably end up with about 75 pages. And what would I do with that? I'd call you, and you could...
Hey, we should shoot you doing that.
Huh?
We should shoot you giving a master class to some students here.
Yeah.
And sell that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying. All we have to do is get...
We just get a venue and a few students and
Yeah. Well, what they did at Auburn was incredible. I was driving into town. They picked me up, and they said, now we're going to go around the highway. Look up. They had a billboard with my face.
Oh, that's great.
One of the things, they come from all over the world here to Hollywood. It's a place, somebody said, is the only place in the world where you can die of encouragement. But there are a lot of people out here waiting for you to take your money away. You have to be very, very careful who you study with.
Sure.
Very careful, because it's your life and it's your money. And I suggest to people, if they can, is go to bartender school.
Yeah.
You know, you can always get a job, and it's a night job. But out here, those jobs are gone. The actors are doing them.
Right.
I was a waiter in New York for a while, you know, and that kind. You got a meal, had your days free.
Yep.
But you could get a cup of coffee, like I said. You get a whole meal for 50 cents.
Man.
You know, it's great, yeah. Well, I'll tell you this right now. First of all, like my favorite stuff. In the theater, I did the road production of The Death of a Salesman.
Oh, man.
And I played Willie.
Uh-huh.
That was in the theater.
I'm telling you, Biff, you have to be well-liked.
Well-liked, yeah. But what is the guy, oh, God, you know, Quantum Leap. What's his name again?
Yeah,
anyway,
I know the face.
I loved working together, because I actually got a chance to play a real person, just who had these funny, Captain Galaxy.
Uh-huh.
I love Captain Galaxy. And even though FIST, Federation of Interstate Truckers, didn't go far, I work with some fine, fine people, camera people and this and that. Those are my favorites. But everything I do, you have to remember, you mustn't belittle. If you take a job, it's your responsibility to work as hard on that as it would be on Hamlet. You have to respect the work, otherwise you cannot respect yourself. No matter what you take, I don't care if it's playing tiddlywinks or you're standing on your head, that's all part of acting, and you have to get the discipline, build the discipline to do that, as well as, like somebody says, Hamlet, what's the big deal? It's only 10 long speeches.
Yeah.
You can do it.
How all occasions do inform against me and spur my dull revenge.
Well, there you go. There you go. You know, and look at all the world's a stage. He knows about that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I really, Matthew, you do a wonderful job, and you and I have been trying to get together for a little while, and the strange meeting we had at a lunch counter at was that Bob's?
Yeah, Bob's Big Boy, yeah.
It was a couple of years ago. That's how life is, and here we are sitting and on your show, getting an interview, and it's very pleasant, and I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm really glad to have you. Thank you so much for...
you listeners out there, how should I go about what I am cleaning to my sci-fi cabinets?
Oh, yeah. If you just come through me at manofconvictionpodcast@gmail.com, I will put you in contact with Richard about these items. And if any sci-fi people out there, in fact, I know where to stir up some business for you.
Oh, you know what? I have two that I came across. Can you imagine?
Tell me.
My Klingon knife.
Oh, wow. That's great.
With the original box.
Okay, see, that right there is going to be...
My Klingon knife. People
are going to go nuts, I can tell you right now.
What they got already from Quantum Leap, there are only two of them. Don Belisario has one, my triangle hat from Captain Galaxy in Quantum Leap.
Okay.
That went, but I have, and so much stuff. I have stuff from Seinfeld. dinner plates and this and that. Awards they give us.
That's right. Oh, you played.
But I got into it late. I didn't take any of these things or anything until later. He said, "You're not taking it. You asked us, and you can have it."
Sure. You played George Costanza's boss at the Yankees.
Yeah, I did 14 years on that. I'll tell you about my audition. It was kind of a kick. I got called in there, and see, a lot of people didn't realize until when I did Golden Girls and stuff like that. I did a lot of comedy in New York. But once I did one hard ass, I can't remember which one, then I began doing the heavy guy. So and they said, "Shit, you're a funny guy." I said, "I'm a good straight man." And I read a few things and this and that, and they said, "Wow, thank you." And I stopped at the door, and I turned around. I said, "I can't leave the room. I have a confession." "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm a Red Sox fan." "Get out of here!" I got the job. I mean, I hadn't prepared it. If you intuitively feel something,
just do it.
Do it.
Yeah. That's great advice. Let's end on that. Again, Richard, thank you so much for making the trip, and we'll talk to you soon.
Look, I think what you're doing, it's a preservation in a way.
Yeah.
The more people you have, as the years go by.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is preserved.
Exactly.
It's not an easy thing, the job. Gather the people, do the editing, do this. But I'm glad somebody out here is doing it.
Yeah.
I want to wish you the very best in the new year and beyond.
Thank you, sir.
And to that audience out there, I send you my very best. Richard Herd, H-E-R-D. Signing off.
Thanks. That was the great Richard Herd, who was so kind to schlep over here and talk to me. Next week, I will have Anthony Pierce, production designer, art director, prop master, comic book, and storyboard artist. I've known him since 8th grade. He went to that creative and performing arts school that keeps coming up. Big shout out to Mary Helen for her generous subscription. Have fun in Spain. I want to thank Canada, Australia, thank you. Brazil, muito obrigado. The UK, thanks mate. The UAE, shukran. Norway, tak. France, merci. Spain, gracias. And Ireland, we'd like to thank you very much. And if you're in the West, well, get 'em a hug. Ciao for now.